Utopia, brought to you in part by The Swell, the playground is open. As part of the Department of Natural Resources, the Division of Wildlife Resources is often tasked with translocating animals to aid the propagation of the species. This includes big game animals.
Big game populations are doing really well today, especially compared to 50 years ago. We have more moose on the landscape. We've restored bighorn sheep. We've restored pronghorn to many parts of the state. Moose have migrated on their own from Idaho and Wyoming, and we've actively been managing those. We have about 4,000, 4,500 in Utah right now. Mountain goats, 50 years ago we didn't have mountain goats in the States. We have about 2,000 today. Most every big game population is doing better, except deer. You know, in the 1960s, deer hit their peak in Utah, and although the deer populations are doing a lot better today than they were 20 years ago, we're still not at those all-time highs that we had in the 1960s.
In the early 1800s, America's frontier teemed with wildlife. Today, the places described in the journals would be barely recognizable to its early explorers, but through the efforts of agencies like the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources, the future looks bright.
Bighorn sheep were one of the most ubiquitous animals in Utah at the time that it was first settled, and since then populations have declined. And in about the 1960s, we had very small populations of desert bighorn sheep, and Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep were virtually extirpated from the state. Since then, we've done a lot of restoration efforts. We've worked with sportsman communities, a lot of different partners to try to restore bighorns. And we went from a couple hundred sheep in the 1960s to close to 5,000 sheep today.